Good afternoon, and thank you everybody for joining us for today's webinar, Risk and Reward, Old School Meets New Tools with Cory Cumbia. This webinar is hosted by Handle's Building Blocks community. My name is Lori Drake, and I am the Building Blocks community manager. For those not familiar with Handle, we do have a platform that is purposely built for building material suppliers. We focus on lien rights management, job and bond research, waiver compliance, as well as a dedicated payment portal. If you're interested in hearing more about Handle or learning more about the Building Blocks community and how you can participate, please shoot me a message in the chat box anytime, or you can reply to the after event email that I will send for more information. On that note, I will be sending an email after this event. It will include a copy of the presenter's slides as well as a copy of the recording for your convenience. Cory, do you want to go on to the next slide? Today, I am excited to introduce Cory Cumbia. He is the Vice President of Credit for SRS Distribution. With over a decade of experience in construction materials, Cory brings a powerful mix of leadership, insight, and heart to everything he does. He holds a bachelor's degree from Virginia Tech and considers himself both a student as well as a teacher. He's passionate about mentoring others, developing strong teams, and helping credit professionals grow within their careers. Cory's expertise lies in navigating the delicate balance between risk and reward to drive operational success. He is a huge community supporter, having presented for me in the past, I'd say a couple of years ago now, on an expert panel that we had. He just presented for Handle a little over a month ago, and he will be taking the stage again in LA for our summit in August. Cory, we are glad to have you, and I'll let you take the floor from here.
All right, thank you, Laura, and this is a wonderful introduction. I'm very, very happy to be here. So just a quick introduction for myself. As Laura mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Credit for SRS Distribution, our Building Products Division. I've been in my current role for about 6 months. Our Building Products Division has over 750 locations, about $10 billion in sales. And I spent my entire career in credit and construction distribution. So started with a company called Ferguson Enterprises. And after I graduated from Virginia Tech, began as a trainee in Baltimore in a really robust training environment. Was very fortunate to learn the ropes and basics and fundamentals and be able to apply that going for my career. And for me, moving around was an opportunity to move up. So I had stopping points in DC, then got out to the West Coast in Seattle, managing the Northwest before holding some corporate positions. Then ultimately coming over to the SRS family of companies. I started off in Heritage, which is our landscape and pool divisions. And that was when we were first starting off. And that was my opportunity to really build a new credit department that didn't exist at the time. But I spent my last year and a half in our building products division, which is our kind of bread and butter of the company. And I work with an amazing team. And our team is really empowered as managers, largely thanks to the technology that we have. So we're going to talk a lot about tech today, but I kind of want to start off and preface with not all tech is good tech. Poke some fun at myself. Our IT team put together this photo of me. So I think it's important that we distinguish between what's helpful and what's not. And I will spare you. We'll move on from this. But a little bit about our company. Last year, we were bought by the Home Depot for $18.5 billion. And that was their largest acquisition to date in the history of the company and a huge milestone for us at SRS. But it was also a big moment in credit, too. So when the announcement came out that Home Depot was acquiring SRS, our CFO actually talked about trade credit, which is pretty cool. And they talked about how our department would help unlock opportunities with professional contractors for the larger Home Depot family. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here in this audience about how important trade credit is. But this was the first time in my career that we really got a shout out publicly as a part of a larger strategy. And so this continues on the last earnings calls for Home Depot. Ted Decker, our CEO, announced that SRS will be managing the credit function for Home Depot as a key part of their strategy, growing sales into the future. So, I mean, it's really cool to hear about credit in the spotlight on earning calls, on talks with Jim Crater and Mad Money. And this is from a CEO of one of the largest companies in the U.S. So this is something that I'm very passionate about. I'm passionate about what I do, who I work for, and I'm very passionate about the profession. So I want to share kind of my ideas about how do we elevate credit and elevate the people who manage credit. So let's jump in. And all right, so I trust everybody has this textbook. It's Credit Management 101. Please turn to page one with me. We're going to go through page by page. No, I'm kidding. I'll admit to being a nerd, and I still have mine. That's a copy that I took a picture of yesterday. The reason I do this is because I'm gonna reference it for this call, as we think about some of the old school things, old school methods that work for us. So, all joking aside, I am literally going to start with chapter one. This is page 8 out of chapter one, and I pulled these bullet points out because they're so relevant. And this is a book that was written in 1994, the first edition. It's still relevant today because I want to start here because we're going to talk about tech solutions that bring value to your organization. But if you take away nothing else from this call, please understand that this is not a call about tech. It is a call about you. We're going to talk about what tech or AI can do so that we can focus on the things that it cannot do. So all of these attributes are something that require human interaction, the things that you do best. Your ability to do the things on screen right now is what brings the most value. So all the tools around this are intended to help you focus on people and innovate so that you can have a bigger impact with your company. So there's a lot right now in the news and talks, and I think it's top of mind for everybody about AI. And I'm sure everybody has seen a version of this quote. And I Googled it. I don't have the time or energy to figure out who said it first. There's a lot of people that seem to claim it. But the point is the same. Everybody, especially credit professionals, need to adapt. And no matter, what your role is within your org, it is time to start thinking differently. And incorporating better tech will accentuate the things that you do best. And so let's start by framing it this way, that tech largely in AI, it's not coming for your job. We should think about it as coming for your busy work and the things that are transactional in nature, administrative in nature. So we have to start thinking about, how we've traditionally approached credit and approached collections, and we need to give that a little bit of an update. So the days of working an Excel spreadsheet from oldest to newest, working backwards, that needs an upgrade. If your time is spent reviewing orders on hold and releasing those, it's time that we add some automation to that process. We start thinking differently, change from transactional to strategic. We want to change from reactive to proactive. We want to change from descriptive, so what happens to an account, and think about prescriptive. When I say that, I mean contingency planning around likely options that are driven by data and by trends. So the first step is to just simply understand, where do you spend your time? And this is a great exercise to audit that by doing a time study. So if you're an individual contributor, you can do this. You can start tracking, where am I spending my time in a given day, week, month. And if you're a team leader, it's a really important exercise to go through, is to do an audit, and where are people truly spending their time? You take the number of people you have, compare that to the available hours in the day, week, month, and then you figure out where the time is spent, right? And what is it truly spent on? Is it a large portion that's focused on collections? Or how much of your time is focused on providing waivers to customers or invoices or statements? What you want to do is compare that reality to what your goals are. And if you find that the amount of time that you're allocating to the most value-adding activities is short, then that's where you prioritize your efforts for process improvement. So this is an example of what a typical time study might produce. So think back to the slide where, it had the bullet point asking us to move from like generalists to specialists. On the left-hand side here, you have what's probably pretty common in a credit department. As a profession, we've, traditionally valued ourselves in doing a lot in the day. Everybody's very busy, and we definitely value customer service and taking care of the needs of your branches or sales team and certainly your customers. But that inevitably means taking care of a lot of transactional things. Instead, we need to value what we do best and oftentimes what's hardest in a day. And that means focusing on the biggest challenges that we face with our customers, the biggest collections issues, the biggest decisions that we have to make about extending credit. So what we want to do is move this to the right side. And what we're doing is we're creating bandwidth for the personal characteristics of credit managers that we had up on screen for those things to flourish. The bullet point I want to think about is the ability to analyze complex problems constructively. That's where you want to allocate more and more of your time. So you're never going to be able to eliminate transactional work that is key to good customer service, but you can decrease it substantially and make room for those value-adding activities focused on your customers, branches, and the sales team. So here's a little bit of what it's looked like for SRS Distribution. And we truly have a cradle-to-grave automated credit system. And that takes us from a new applicant submitting to approving that application, to job approvals, lien right maintenance, collection efforts, even recommending holds. And if a customer's not paying the bill, going to a collection agency, that in theory, a customer can go through this entire cycle without human intervention if it meets the right criteria. But the goal absolutely is not to automate people out of it. If you notice that in the visual, there's people sprinkled throughout this process. The way we think about this is that the people are running the robots, that they are programming it, and that everybody, and credit managers especially, have robots working for them. And this is where people add quality to the process. That this is an ecosystem that balances automation for the repetitive tasks, the repetitive decisions, and it balances that with expertise for the credit professional. These things are working in tandem. We're not talking about a binary decision between robot and automation or person. What you do is you build automation into the no-brainer decisions. And what I mean by that is that the application that you get across your desk that you approve 10 times out of 10. That's what the automation is good at. But where people need to be engaged with the process is managing the exceptions and intervening in these processes based on their own discretion, based on their own expertise. So there's a lot of ways that we can use these things, and we're not going to go through every single one of them. But these are examples of things to start exploring, right? So the credit decisions, the slam dunks, the ones that come across your desk, you make 10 times out of 10, same decision. So you can think about, real things. Think about attributes like years in business, days beyond terms, high credit. You can quantify those things and set parameters for how your systems make those decisions for you. But then you want to think about the ones that are more complex, the ones that you need to look at and ensure that those are taken off the conveyor belt and put in front of a person to make that decision. And the same applies for collections. So for most businesses, the 80-20 rule applies, and 80% of your business is made up of 20% of your customers by volume. So you want to think about, as we are challenged to do more with less, how do you hit the high volume of customers that you have that you don't necessarily have time to call? And what are the stages in their aging that we want to communicate a certain way? So a softer touch on the 1 to 30 days past due. Maybe that escalates and we start communicating holds or potential collections as it goes through that life cycle. And you can even automate those things, right? That it recommends customers for those adverse actions based off the tolerance levels that you set. And the value in all of this is in the design, that you set up your systems to quote unquote think like a credit manager. If you're going to make that decision every time, well, then you can set up elegant systems that have good customer service touch points, but do that kind of in the background while you're working. And then the rest, so think about the other side of that equation, the 20% of your customers that make up 80% of your business, that's where people manage the complexity, that we flex our muscles with relationship credit, where being involved, visiting a customer, having a good relationship will tip the scales in favor of a good outcome for your company and hopefully for that customer as well. So I want to dig in a little bit deeper on a couple of use cases to think not just about collections, but how can we add value for our company, maybe in a different way. And so the first is the idea of being a champion for your sales team. So I'm sure there's people out there that have gotten word from a leader in your company about some ambitious new initiative on a sales goal. Maybe you thought, how am I going to support that? Maybe you have like a pedal to the floor strategy to grow revenue, and we feel like there might be some undue risk that we could take on with that. So you're gonna have a fight on your hands, extending to every credit to every customer imaginable, good, bad, ugly. You're going to get just flooded in your inbox and calls from salespeople. But what if you could get in front of that? So using something like a simple scoring system, you can have your cake and eat it too. And this is something you can do if you have a good IT system that can help manage the automation. But it's something that if you have access to something as simple as Excel, that you can take the reins and do it proactively. So and all it takes is getting the right data and adding logic that make decisions like you would, right? So taking those attributes like high credit, years in business, payment history with you, and creating some simple scoring models that might recommend things like credit limit increases so that you can give that to the sales team and support an intelligent risk rather than an indiscriminate risk that's associated with a general strategy to grow sales. And that's really meeting your organization where they're at and thinking differently about approaching the challenges that come up. So another cool example is one that we found in our own time study. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that can resonate with this, is that a common activity in our day is that people were spending hours every week sending reports to our branches and our sales team about their customers and about their accounts receivable. So everybody probably deals with this in some way or another within your org. So after the time study, we shadowed people to understand what was most important, what are the most common things that we are sending to our internal stakeholders. How frequently are we sending it? Who is that going to? So instead of having 30 credit managers spending 2+ hours every week, we have one person in our ops department that spends less than 2 minutes every 2 weeks to take that critical information and distribute it out on behalf of the credit managers. It comes from their inbox to the individual salespeople in bulk. And so that's giving your stakeholders the information they need before they ask for it. So these are just some creative ways to think about how do we add value beyond just collecting better. So at this stage, you might be asking, well, how do I do that? And the folks on this call, I imagine you're probably all at different stages integrating technology into your tech processes. But the good news is that there are opportunities at every level, no matter where you are in that journey. And the first step is exploring vendor options. And these can include some seamless integrations that offer a range of solutions. So some of those might include automating decisions, supporting your collection strategy through dunning, including dynamic links to invoices and direct payment opportunities. It can even include releasing orders on hold. That's something that we've really taken advantage of. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor of this call, Handle. They provide a range of automated solutions that empower credit managers. For us, that means lien right management, but even going so far as to help us create a system that's customized that complements our existing ones in a self-service portal for customers for lien waivers. And that gives a tremendous amount of time back in our day. That's one of the top things that if you're in construction, you're going to face day in and day out. But if a vendor solution isn't something that's immediately available, my advice would be make IT your friend. And this is where a lot of our journey started, coming up with some very strong end-to-end solutions and that kind of cradle to grave automated credit system that we have. It wasn't even the vendor solutions. We started internally. One thing that you can think about and explore with your IT team is something called a repetitive process automation. You'll hear it RPA for short. And that can give you major efficiencies. So again, think about just the name of it, repetitive process automation. So things that are done time and time again, you can program to do on your behalf without a person actually having to work through those clicks. So even before we had vendor solutions in place, we had what we would kind of jokingly call an army of robots that was releasing orders on hold. And that helps our credit managers reallocate their time from the individual transactions to focus more at the customer level and be more strategic. It reduced our touch points on uh, order holds by 80% just with a simple solution. But let's say you even have hurdles with your own IT teams, and that's not an immediate option for you. There's a lot that we can do on the front line to innovate and improve things. So simple use of tools out of your ERP system or Microsoft applications can address a lot of the use cases that we had up on screen. So if you're asking, what can I do today to get the ball rolling for any of those solutions? The first place to start is to think about tech as a shortcut for your innovation. So everybody on this call has access to some sort of AI tool. It might be something that your company provides to you through Microsoft and Copilot, or something like, Google, even Google searches now have AI. But we should start thinking about technology as our assistant. And you can use tech to manage your tech. So I want to pause real quick. Think about the old adage, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. I'm not going to have minute solutions, and we're not going to solve any specific problems today. But I'm going to do you one better on that old adage. And rather than teaching you to fish, I want to challenge everybody to start thinking about how do you use a robot who knows how to fish. So let's use a real example, and we're going to take the one that I talked about, internal communication, and distributing that to a large set of people. So think about maybe taking your AR information or bad debt information or disputes, anything that you need to have personalized for a stakeholder, and individually distributing that to a recipient. So if you have access to Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Word, you can create something that's called a mail merge. And even if you've never heard of a mail merge, you've got a head start with AI. So what you're seeing on screen is a prompt that I put into Microsoft Copilot that just asks, how do I create a mail merge using Excel and Word? So this clears, and it gives you a clear step-by-step guide to the process, start to finish. And the cool part about this is that you can talk to it. You can ask it follow-up questions. And as you get more familiar, and depending on the tool you have, you can even start using your Copilot or AI tool to manage key parts of the task for you. And again, that's going to give you time to add value for your company in the underlying solution you're putting in place, but also more time back so you can focus on customers and AR. So another great way to think about how do you create bandwidth within your day is using the tech, using AI to manage your time. So I've got a credit manager on my team that manages our national builder accounts. And if anybody deals in that world, it is very transactional, lots of volume. And she's been really successful using AI to help manage her time. So I'm sure everybody on this call has some kind of system and tool for collections follow-up, some kind of tickler system. But what you can do is, export that data and feed it into these tools, and it'll help you organize your day or week. And it will give you reminders, set up meetings, have tasks for you. And the cool thing is, as you use it, it learns your habits and it learns your needs, and it'll get better with time. So this can help us tremendously with prioritization and make sure that you hit the big stuff. And the cool thing is, even if you don't know where to start with improving in time management, you can ask it for help, right? And it will give you suggestions, and you could say, no, that doesn't work, or tell me more about this. And if you have tools that are integrated with your applications, it can even go so far as to start scheduling meetings for you, creating reminders, tasks. Some of it will even start generating email responses for you and start formulating it in ways that kind of conform to how you phrase emails. So the solutions available don't have to be department wide. They can be very personal. It's all about taking the first step. And then the last one I want to share is kind of a use case for this. there are solutions to help you being a better credit manager. So as a disclaimer, before you go out and use these tools, I do want to encourage you, make sure that anything that you're putting in use complies with your company's policies. So if you have what's called a closed source tool available to you, meaning the information you put in isn't going to be put out to the general public, well, you can use those tools to analyze very large data sets. So as an example, I fed Copilot Microsoft's audited financials. Um, so I said I gave it its last quarter's earnings release and asked it to analyze the debt levels for Microsoft over the last 12 months. And it gave me a concise but comprehensive list speaking to those exact points. And even at the end, it gave me a nice summary, kind of telling me the key things to focus on. And the cool thing about this is that you can have a conversation with it and say, hey, tell me more about this component or something else that's going on. And this can be really powerful in extracting key points in something like financials. So let's say you have an audit set of financials and there are 20 pages of notes. Well, you can use that without going through and reading it yourself first time around and see if it identifies any future challenges for that company with things like debt maturities or lease obligations that are a little bit harder to find if you're just looking at the P&L or the balance sheet. Another way that we use these kind of tools is for alerts on credit files. So what this will do is we use the tech to find any major red flags through things like bankruptcy filings that are publicly available information or concerning increases to days beyond terms from the credit bureau. So twice a month, these systems are operating in the background and will give alerts to our credit manager saying, hey, there's a red flag that's popped up in the credit file. So instead of finding the needles in the haystack with our customers as we work our aging, it's just saying, hey, here are the needles. And that helps us address risk even before we see it in our own AR. So to kind of reiterate here, if you have the data available to you, even in something as simple as an Excel spreadsheet, there are resources that you can use at an individual contributor level that help you get tremendous output and tell you where to focus your time. But it's all about, critically thinking about what are your biggest needs and then exploring the options that you have. And the cool thing with all of this, kind of taking that first step, is that it can augment the solution phase. If you're not sure where to start, you can simply ask it. So to kind of recap what we've covered, embracing new tech will help you do the credit fundamentals better. So we're kind of at a crossroads in the profession right now where we need to adapt or we risk automation doing too much. And a lot of what we do day in and day out can be done through AI. And we're talking about some of those things. And those, if we were to automate everything, it would certainly potentially save companies money. But the things that the AI and tech cannot do is where you bring the most value for your companies. So our job as credit professionals is to maximize those opportunities. So I want to pause real quick and I want everybody to think about what was your biggest win from the last year. That could be a large customer that you kept from writing off, that you mitigated some kind of loss. It could be a new customer that's new in business and you sat down with them and you sat down and created a business plan and how you're going to extend credit, how your company can help that company grow. My challenge to you is to say, how can you do more of that in the next 12 months? And how can you start taking steps to unlock more time to focus on those things? Because that's what's going to help you deliver for your company. But I also like to think about this kind of from a broader level too, is that you are touching thousands of companies and even more people every single day. And so as you're serving those small businesses, if you can find more ways to unlock the relationship credit aspect of things, then we're absolutely serving the profession. You're serving your own career, helping your company, and helping real people involved in the process. So we just want to challenge everybody to keep using tech to give you an opportunity to do more of what you do best. So before we open up for questions, just want to thank everybody for being here and being a part of this topic. So I think this is very important for us to talk about as a profession, and I hope that it brings value to you as a professional as well. But Lori, that does it for my portion of the content. If we wanted to open up for any questions.
Absolutely. While we're giving someone a chance to think about that, I will say I love how you said that AI doesn't take your job. It's the person that's creating that robot to do what it's told to do that will take your job. We just had an event last week in Colorado, and we were talking about how if you set up your own, like I use ChatGPT 4.0, it's my own login. The more I use it, the more I utilize it for different things. It learns my voice. It learns what I'm looking for and how I operate on different things. So it's actually creates things for me based off history that it has with me. So it's really neat to watch it grow like that.
It's a little bit intimidating to get started with it, but once you do, it actually becomes really familiar and comfortable. And you kind of think about it as your buddy beside you every day, helping you. It's your assistant, right?
Cory, I want to thank you again for taking your time and talking with us. Your information is always spot on and helpful and actionable steps that we could take to use today. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. You will be getting the recording as well as the slides, and we hope to see you at the next event as well.